Okay, let's start with a huge question. What does it actually mean to be alive? I mean, it sounds simple, right? But it's honestly one of the deepest questions out there. So today, we're going to go on this crazy high-speed tour, starting with a single molecule and zooming all the way out to the entire planet to figure it out. You ready? Let's dive in. All right, so here's our game plan. Think of it like a great zoom out. We're going to start by defining life itself. Then we'll dive into the microscopic machinery, check out the blueprint in the nucleus, see how cells build entire systems, and finally zoom way out to look at life on a grand scale. Let's get to it.
So, first things first, defining life itself. I mean, where do you even start with a question that big? Before we get into all the cool hows of biology, we gotta nail down the what. What is life? It seems so obvious, but trust me, it's a huge question in science.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. What's the real difference between, say, a rock and a squirrel, or a car and a tree? You might say, well, a car moves and uses energy, but a tree grows and uses energy too, right? So what's that secret ingredient? What is that little spark that makes something alive?
Well, biologists came up with a pretty handy checklist to figure this out. The easiest way to remember it is this acronym, MRS-GREN. And here's the kicker. To be considered alive, something has to do all of these things. Not just one or two, but the whole list. Movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. It's actually a really tough club to get into.
And the glue that holds all of that together? It's a concept called homeostasis. You can just think of it as a constant internal balancing act. It's the reason your body temperature stays right around 98.6 degrees, whether you're in a snowstorm or a heat wave. It's like this tireless little manager inside you making sure everything is just right so all those other life processes can happen.
Okay, so we've got a working definition of life. Now it's time to zoom in. We're going way, way down, past what you can see, to look at the incredible microscopic machinery that makes it all tick.
And this is where things get just mind-blowing. Life is built up in layers, like a set of Russian nesting dolls. You start with simple, non-living atoms. They link up to make molecules. Those molecules build these tiny little machines called organelles. And then, boom! The organelles come together to create the first thing on this list that's actually alive, the cell. From there, it's just about scaling up. Cells form tissues, tissues form organs, and eventually you get a whole organism, like you and me.
You know, the cell is so important that it has its own theory. And it's one of the cornerstones of all biology. The rules are super simple, but they're incredibly profound. First, everything that's alive is made of cells. Second, the cell is the most basic unit of life. And third, and you gotta get this one, every single cell comes from another cell that already existed. Life doesn't just appear out of thin air. It's an unbroken chain stretching all the way back to the very beginning.
Now, not all cells are created equal. There are basically two main models. On one side, you've got prokaryotes, think bacteria. They're super simple, kind of like a one-room apartment where their DNA just floats around. But then you have eukaryotes. That's what we're made of. We're much more complex, with our DNA locked away safely in a special room called the nucleus. And that one little difference, that nucleus, made all the difference in the world for creating complex life.
So all this cellular activity, what's paying for it? Where does the energy come from? Well, every single action inside a cell costs something, and it's paid for in one universal currency. It's a molecule called ATP. Seriously, think of it like the dollar bill of the cell. It's the energy that powers literally everything, from making a muscle move to firing a neuron so you can have a thought. It all runs on ATP.
So how do cells make this ATP? Through respiration. But check this out, because how they do it makes a world of difference. If there's no oxygen around, that's called anaerobic respiration, a cell gets like 2 little units of ATP. Pretty pathetic, right? But add oxygen to the mix, aerobic respiration, and bam! You get up to 38 units of ATP. That is a massive difference. That incredible energy boost is exactly why oxygen was the game changer that allowed life to get big, fast, and complex.
But wait, where does all this energy come from in the first place? Well, for pretty much all life on this planet, it starts with plants. You can think of them as the Earth's original solar panels. Through this incredible process called photosynthesis, they do something that's basically magic. They take sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water and turn it into food, glucose. And as a byproduct, they release oxygen, the very stuff we need to get all that ATP. They literally create the foundation for our entire world.
All right, so we've got our cells and we've got ATP to power them. But who's in charge? What's telling these cells what to do, what to become? To find out, we have to go back inside that special room, the nucleus, and look at the blueprint for life.
And there it is, DNA. This molecule is the ultimate instruction manual. It's the master blueprint containing every single piece of information needed to build and run an entire organism. And little chunks of that DNA, which we call genes, are the specific instructions for everything from the color of your eyes to how tall you'll grow.
Okay, so how does your body actually use this blueprint to grow or make new life? It has two different ways of dividing cells. For everyday stuff like growing bigger or healing a cut, it uses mitosis. Just think of it like a perfect photocopier. It makes an exact, identical copy of a cell. But for reproduction, it uses something way cooler, meiosis. This is where it shuffles the genetic deck, mixing things up to create brand new, unique combinations. And that genetic variety, that's the fuel for all of evolution.
Okay, we've gone deep into the single cell and its instruction manual. Now, let's zoom back out a bit. It's time to see how trillions, literally trillions of these tiny cells work together to build something as complex as a human.
See, these trillions of cells don't just hang out. They organize into specialized teams or systems. First up, you've got the transport network, the circulatory system. This is basically the body's highway system, with arteries and veins as the roads, and the heart as the nonstop pump, making sure every single cell gets the fuel and oxygen it needs.
Next, we have the communications network, the nervous system. This is literally the body's internet. It's this complex web of nerves flashing electrical signals from your brain out to every corner of your body, coordinating absolutely everything, from a simple reflex to a complex idea. And finally, who's protecting this whole amazing city of cells? That's the job of the immune system. It's your personal, microscopic army, always on patrol, hunting down and destroying any invaders like bacteria or viruses that try to cause trouble.
All right, time for our final and biggest zoom out yet. We're going beyond just one organism. We're going to pull the camera all the way back and look at how all of life, every plant, animal, and microbe, interacts on a massive planetary scale.
And this is the world of ecology. It sounds complicated, but the basic ideas are pretty simple. Every living thing has a habitat. That's just its address, where it lives. It also has a niche. That's its job in that habitat. You put all the different species together and you have a community. And they're all connected through these intricate food webs, which really just show us how energy flows from the sun to the plants to the animals that eat them and so on.
But that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? Why are there so many different kinds of life? Well, the answer is one of the most elegant and powerful ideas in all of science: natural selection. It's actually a super simple process. Step 1, individuals in a population are all a little different. Step 2, it's a tough world out there, so the ones with traits that help them survive, well, they survive. Step 3, the survivors get to reproduce and pass on those winning traits. You just repeat that cycle over and over for millions of years, and that's how you get everything from a blue whale to a butterfly.
So it's probably a good moment to ask, how in the world do we know all this stuff? I mean, this whole story is amazing, but it's not just a fairy tale. It's all built on the bedrock of the scientific method. That's the step-by-step process of observing something, asking a question, making a testable guess, and then actually testing it. It's this reliable, powerful engine that lets us separate what's true from what we just think is true. And it's how all this biological knowledge was built.
So there you have it. We went all the way from what it means to be alive, down to the tiny machines inside our cells, and all the way back out to the engine of evolution itself. At the end of the day, biology isn't just some subject you study in school. It's the story of us. It's the incredible 4 billion year long story that you are a part of. So the real question isn't what we covered today, but what part of this amazing story you're going to go get curious about tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.